Personally speaking, hitting an overhead is one of my favorite shots to hit. Now I'm going to show you how an American football is going to help you improve your overhead. Hello, it's Ryan from 2minutetennis.net, and in this video, I'm going to help you hit great overheads. Now, this video is courtesy of Essential Tennis. Thank you so much, Ian, for allowing me to use this video, and be sure to subscribe to Essential Tennis. I've put their link in the description below. All right. How is an overhead like throwing a football? Well, let's check it out. And in a second here, I'll be in front of the camera and demonstrate this. But the first thing is, don't point at the ball when the ball goes up in the air. Do what the pros do. Turn with both hands on the racket. I want you to look at this position. Even though we can't see the entire racket, we understand what position the racket is in. So his racket is in this position. His strings are pointing down, and you could basically say that the tip of the racket is pointing up at the ball. His left hand is on the throat of the racket. So rather than doing what's conventionally taught, which is point to the ball, as soon as the ball goes up, point to the ball and put your racket up above your head, I want you to do what a football quarterback does and what the pros do. They turn with both hands on the racket. This is a coiling mechanism. When you turn your body like this, you're going to be able to hit your best overheads. Now, from here, that's when your non-hitting hand, your left hand, if you're right-handed, goes up into the air. But notice again, he's not pointing at the ball. His arm is pointing up to his right slightly. It's not straight up in the air. It's slightly over to his right because he's looking over that arm as he's looking up at the ball. The only thing that's actually pointing at the ball is the tip of the racket. So it's really important at this point that your strings are pointing down. Typically, I see recreational players with their racket back here and their strings are facing up. And all they do is go from here straight up to the ball and they get no circular swing. From this point, you'll notice, and I recommend that you all wear birthday hats when you hit overheads. If you wear a birthday hat on the top of your head, the racket should pass in and knock the birthday hat off. And it's very easy to see that. His racket is passing in over his head. You can see the shadow of his racket with the sunlight, right? His racket's passing in over the head, then the racket circles around. Now here, you can see that his racket is supinated, so his strings are facing right at us. His strings are facing at the camera. And then as he's hitting and he's done, we can see that his racket is now facing the opposite direction. So here the strings are facing the camera, here the strings are facing away from the camera. So that is pronation. So that's 180 degrees of racket rotation and where the strings are pointing. And that is what a quarterback does when they throw a football. Here's another view of a great overhead. So Fed's turning. You can see the left hand on the throat of the racket. He's looking up. He's not pointing at the ball. You don't have to point to the ball to track the ball. It's just not what you want to do. You want to turn with both hands to get you sideways. Then your arm can go up, and you want this arm up not to point, but you want the arm up as part of the throwing motion so that it can drop and then tuck into your body. Here he is knocking off the party hat. He's bringing that arm in against his body. You can see the pronation. Here the strings are facing the camera. Here the strings are facing away from the camera. It's just an absolutely gorgeous overhead from Fed. Now, the first thing we want to do is get rid of the conventional thinking that as soon as the ball goes up in the air, we're supposed to put the racket behind our head and point to the overhead. Don't do that anymore. It's not going to help you hit good overheads. Do what the best players do, and that is they turn with both hands on the racket. If I'm hitting the ball this way, they turn like this. Just notice this position. My elbow is back, but down. It's almost like I'm going to elbow someone in the stomach. So I'm elbowing someone behind me with my elbow low. You want your elbow below the shoulder. My strings are pointing down, but another way to say that is turn with both hands on the racket to turn the back of your front shoulder to your opponent, but point the tip of the racket at the ball. So turn, and the tip of the racket is pointing up. What you typically see is players do this. The elbow is in front, their palm is facing up, and their strings are facing up. And if you've ever gotten into this position on your overhead, pointing in the waiter's tray, all you'll do from there is bend your back and then kind of like you're bowing after a great performance, but it may not be the best overhead you can hit, right? So you're gonna hit like this, and you don't wanna do that. You wanna turn with both hands on the racket. Now from here, you will reach up because that's part of the throwing motion. You're not reaching up to point to the ball. You're reaching up, not forward, pointing at the ball. You'll reach up, it'll then go out and it'll tuck in against the body, just like on the serve as a way to get a ton of racket speed. But you'll turn, you'll reach up, and then from here, this is where we want to knock off the party hat. If any of you have have Roger Federer's phone number or you know him personally, please contact me, Ryan at 2minutetennis.net. I will fly anywhere in the world that day to get on the court and film a video with Roger Federer hitting overheads. and knocking off the birthday hat. So thank you so much. That would definitely be a viral video. But I want you to turn, reach up, and then knock off the party hat. We want to shy away from just going straight open. From the back, it looks like this. You see players do this, and the racket flips over. We want to make a circular motion on the overhead. So the birthday hat gives you the instant feedback as to whether or not you're making that move. So we turn, both hands on the racket, elbow is back and slightly down, strings are down, tip of the racket pointing up at the ball. I reach up, I knock off the birthday hat, then I come around, and now my racket, as long as I've got a continental grip, will be on its edge. Now, we want to come around on its edge for a couple reasons. One is we want to put side spin on the ball. Spin is the way we control the ball, whether it's a topspin forehand, on a serve, whatever. If we can get the ball to rotate, we can get the ball to do what we want it to do even when it leaves our racket. So I don't want you to think hitting flat overheads. A lot of times people just try to blast their overhead. You're 10 feet from the net. There's no reason to blast the ball. Just control the ball, spin it, place it. You're going to win the point even with a half-speed shot. And spinning the ball is a great way to make sure that you're controlling the ball. Now, as you do this, you're going to pronate. So as you go up, if you're right-handed, your strings will face left. And as you go up, just like a quarterback throwing the ball and their forearm makes this move, you're going to make that same move where your strings face left, then they face right. But when you contact the ball, you will spin the ball and then you continue rotating. So you will be hitting side spin and the ball will curve left if you're right-handed, but you're going to lead with the edge and then be pronating. A lot of players, they ask in the comments, they'll say, why pronate after contact if the ball's already gone? Like, isn't it worthless to do that? Well, no, because the pronation is 180 degrees. Here my strings are facing left, and here my strings are facing to the right. The looseness of the snap is what we want. We're just happening to hit the ball while we are pronating. And as long as we're leading with the edge up to the ball and then begin pronating, we're going to get side spin on the ball while we pronate. Again, that's for racket speed and for spin. So again, if you have an American style football, practice throwing some football with a friend or family member. Turn with both hands. If you're a coach, bring this and have your students practice their overhead. Turn with both hands on the football. Elbow someone behind you. And you should be listening to the football. Don't have it down here. Have it right here. You're going to reach out and then throw. The last thing I want you to do, and you watch players who throw a football really well, is they pull this arm in as a reactive break to actually help accelerate their throwing arm. It's the same thing on the overhead. When you turn, reach up, knock off the party hat and hit side spin, I want you to cross your arms when you're done. It's an easy way to make sure that you don't rotate. And if you stay sideways, you can get the side spin you're looking for and be accurate. Now, one last thing I want to mention. That second overhead that we saw Federer hit, he was moving back, hitting a scissor kick overhead. A scissor kick overhead is when you jump off your back foot and your legs scissor. That's how they move back and jump up to get to that ball. When you're moving back and hitting an overhead like that, it's important that you're not hitting side spin as much as you're trying to hit top spin. Since the ball is going behind you, we want to go up as we're hitting the ball. You're still going to pronate, but really focus on spinning up the back of the ball, putting the rotation on the ball to bring it down. If you mimic a football quarterback throwing a pass with your overhead, there is no doubt you're going to gain confidence, win more matches, and play much better tennis. This is Ryan Reedy from 2MinuteTennis.net. You got this.